It's BumbleKast Mini, sponsored by Luke R.
These questions are a little long, so bear with me. Hey guys, so I can honestly say that I am not a big fan of Archie Sonic. Now this doesn't mean the writing, or at least not your writing, Ian, but just the concept in general. It based its world off a property that clashes too much with what Sonic is in the video games. At the time, a decent enough idea because it was such a popular property, and the 2D games were without much character depth. But Ian, I think your editor had the right idea in the mid-2000s to suggest a reboot. My question is, in your opinion, if the reboot had happened, would Archie Sonic have been better off? No legal issues to deal with, etc. Or would it have been cancelled even sooner? Putting my personal feelings aside, for your sake, Ian, I'm actually glad you didn't go through with it, because you probably would have been labeled the man who rebooted/ruined Archie Sonic, and you already deal with a lot of BS online as it is. Yeah, well. Yeah, no. It's fine.
It is a bit selfish, but yes, that was one of the reasons I was absolutely terrified at the suggestion at the time. It's like, no, don't put that crown on my head, please.
No.
I think it would have kept going just fine. Sonic fans are voracious in their appetite, and they are extremely loyal. So, if we had rebooted then, I don't think that would have affected the longevity of the book. That would have been other matters. But I am glad we didn't do it, because I grew up on that book. I wanted to contribute to it. And as bitter as that ending was, I still relish what I was able to do.
Well then, speaking of Archie, Ian, I was wondering, since the Sonic brand is so heavily associated with music, is there any chance there might be an IDW character introduced that is akin to something like Mina Mongoose? I think featuring a Mobian musician would really show and expand on the fact that the Mobians have their own culture and things like music or events and enjoy in their free time. Kyle, I'm also curious about your thoughts on this.
I am in no rush to do that. One of the biggest struggles with Mina is, if you're going to convey her as a musician, how do you do that in a silent medium?
That's really the big thing. Yeah.
Like, her one concert, was really sold by the art as much as it was the writing. And there was actually somebody who did a fan cover of it. Like, they made their own music for it, and it rocked pretty hard. But it's a challenge, and I don't feel like even when you do your best effort, if it really conveys that sense. Like, the visuals alone cannot convey what power music has. Mina's whole shtick was inherited. I kind of had to work with what we had. I don't know if I want to revisit that challenge myself anytime soon. What about you?
I mean, you're right. It's really difficult to convey music in a medium like comics. It doesn't really work as well. So, I mean, it's certainly doable, but I don't know if I would want necessarily to have something like that in the book. I mean, there are other ways to show culture stuff, but I don't know. Maybe. So, Ian, in a previous BumbleKast, you said you probably would never write Sonic crying because he just isn't that kind of guy. While I'm all for a hero like him being stoic and not breaking down in tears, I think it could be done every once in a while to show major distress. Like Satoshi from Pokemon, he has a similar style to Sonic, a real carefree, power-through-it attitude, but on occasions he has been known to cry, such as when he thought Pikachu was dead, or when it had possibly lost its memory forever. In your opinion, if Sonic ever thought Tails was really dead, would he break down and cry? Yes, this is not me trying to be a jerk and saying, your view is wrong, Ian. I'm legitimately curious about your take on the character.
Sure, and it's open for discussion and debate. I am not the single signature opinion on Sonic. I still don't see him as the weepy type. And that isn't to say that he would be stone-faced in this scenario. Tails gets, eaten by a mecha velociraptor right in front of him. Gooey bits and fur everywhere.
I think he would be just really angry.
Or, maybe that's too violent. Tails flew off into space and is never coming back. Goodbye, my planet needs me. Whoop! He would be sad to be sure, mopey, but being openly weepy, I just don't see fitting for him. But again, see him as like the stone-faced stoic type where he would just be, grimly looking into the middle distance. I think he would be emotive, but just not like with lots of waterworks.
No, he's not Shadow. Shadow is a different character. I think you might be getting him confused. I've heard that Sonic Origins ignores the Sonic game manual and makes it to where Eggman and Sonic's first meetup canonically happens in Sonic 1. If accurate, what are your guys' thoughts on this? I personally think it robs us of a cool origin story that could have been in future media like the games or the comics. I know it's just easier for Sega to say, yeah, they meant the first game, to avoid the hassle of crafting a new story, but I, along with others, have always wanted that story. Basically, if they just laid the foundation for the story, we all know Ian can do an amazing job fleshing it out.
That was something that we discussed a lot when we were building the scripts for the cutscenes, along with a lot of discussion of what order the games would be in. But it was specified by Sega that, yeah, Sonic 1 is the beginning of everything. And, I said, some manual material says there were previous adventures, and the response was, not anymore. It's like, okay, this is the new foundation that we're building from, so here it is.
I'm not sure I like it. I don't think
I'm ambivalent on it myself. I still want to put CD after Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but that's me.
I get the reasoning for it, but I don't know if I like it. Sonic did not exist before Sonic 1, apparently. That's it.
I also think the way that things are presented in Origins is open-ended enough that we could conceivably walk back on that, but
yeah,
that's not the intention at the moment.
All right. In a previous BumbleKast live stream, you answered my established lore question by saying, yes, some lore can be put in ancillary material, such as the encyclopedia, as long as it's not something important to the overall franchise. I agree. That being the case, what are some things for you and Kyle that would fall into this category? For me, the first thing that comes to my mind is the reason Blaze was in Silver's future in Sonic 06. It's something fans have wanted to know for years, but it's not really something that needs to be addressed in the comics or the games.
I think it could be touched upon in the comics. I think that'd be a neat little mini-series myself.
Yeah.
I don't know if it really warrants a whole game, but maybe a Tails tube, something. But that's like super in the weeds type stuff, so you have to be careful of when and how you do it. Like who like with it, if it were a Tails tube, who is this information for? Is it for the general audience that you're trying to introduce to Sonic and educate the basics on, and educate most people who may not be familiar with Sonic? Or are you aiming at the hardcore fans who are a much smaller audience but are ravenous for this type of stuff, So it's a balancing act on every single episode that we've done. So I don't know where it would be. I'd like to tell it at some point. I like it to just be out there, but I don't know. We'll see.
I mean,
it definitely will not be here, because that is not what the BumbleKast is for. Like, I offer insights, I offer tidbits and such, but this should not be considered an official resource of any licensor. No. This is just two guys answering questions, talking nerdy stuff, and take that as you will.
Two guys full of nonsense. We are very nonsensical. Don't. This is just for fun.
My word of God only goes so far until the higher gods step in. Little G.
This is two guys full of crap. Do you all think the reason the Sonic fandom has such a hang-up on pairings is partially, if not mostly, due to Archie Sonic? I mean, from what I read of that series, there was so much relationship drama. By the way, not blaming you at all, Ian. The tone was set by previous writers. It really feels like a CW show at times. No, it's worse than a CW show.
It also is not intrinsic to any era of Sonic in particular. Shipping is a thing in any fandom.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, it wouldn't really make much of a difference, I don't think, whether Archie was there or not. I mean, it didn't help. But
no, but like if Archie Sonic had been 100% celibate, everyone is just clearly good friends that shake hands at most, there would still be shipping.
Star Trek was decidedly not a romantic series, and yet that's kind of where this whole concept of shipping really started to go for. I mean, the fandom, I guess. Star Trek and everything kind of started this whole fandom train, you know? So, yeah, I don't think it would have made too much of a difference. So, I mean, they are on spaceships in Star Trek, but that's a different kind of ship.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Oh, it's so romantic. It's such a romantic theme song. I mean, it kind of is. It's weird. I know you can't answer this in any kind of detail, Ian, but in your mind, or even possibly notes, do you have a general idea of how the inevitable confrontation between Whisper and Mimic would play out? It's probably going to be pretty badass, I assume.
Yeah. I was actually talking with Evan about this a while back, kind of brainstorming on how to address it. And that's a tough nut to crack, because this is an all ages book. This is family reading, and revenge killing, not so much. So I don't know if I haven't settled on anything myself. Maybe she or Danny or somebody else can figure that out and how to properly address it. But for right now, it is a lingering concern.
Just drop a train on him. It's the same thing you did. The same thing you did before with Starline.
Well, the thing is, Starline's destruction was his own hubris.
Yes,
you know, he thought himself so grand, and he literally brought the city down on himself. Mimic and Whisper, it's extremely personal, and if she doesn't get the kill, it feels like she's being robbed. But if you find a way for her to walk away from it, it feels like you're also robbing her of it. Like, if she outgrows the vendetta, it's like, well, then what was all the fighting and angst for? So it'll take some figuring out.
So it's been mentioned that canonically, Eggman has never actually killed anyone. He's just attempted to. My question is, Ian, if given the green light from Sega that he could succeed in offing someone, would you write Eggman to be an occasional killer, or just give him one impactful kill, like you did with Tommy Turtle? I know the obvious victim would have been Starline, but unfortunately that time has passed, and so is he. Big oof.
Yes. Yes and no, because once you let the genie out of the bottle, it's really hard to put him back. If Eggman is willing to pull the trigger on anybody, why doesn't he do it all the time? There is a little bit of that hand wavy. He likes to toy with his opponents, and it's all a game to him. And yeah, that only goes so far. And in Tommy's case, we had already established that Eggman would pull the trigger. Like, he had no qualms over it. And in this particular instance, he was going to blow up both Adam and Tommy. Boom, done. Quite literally. Whoops. For IDW Eggman, I mean, Starline would have made the most sense to just humiliate him and then end him. But I don't know if I want him to go that far. I mean, it's ultimately not up to me, but just personally speaking, I think the threat of danger is better than actually doing it, if that makes any sense.
Let Eggman kill.
As a treat.
Same with Whisper. A little bit of murder never hurt. Just kidding. Ian, have you read the superhero arc of the Dragon Ball Super manga? If so, what are your thoughts? Did you enjoy the slice-of-life high school stuff? I did, but must admit that it wasn't very Dragon Ball-esque, besides the Gohan filler in the anime. But it was fun nonetheless.
I have not. My understanding of where Super is very tenuous at best. My brother-in-law kind of updates me every now and again, but I have not been following it myself. And he hasn't said anything about the high school arc, so I'm guessing it's not that interesting. The last thing I saw, and I guess this is spoilers, I honestly don't know where this falls, it might be right before this arc, is when Frieza shows up in his new form and just one-shots Goku and Vegeta. And it's like, okay, this is ridiculous, but it's also kind of tradition at this point, so fine, roll with it.
Mm.
I mean, the power levels were ridiculous back in Z. At this point, it's just, why even complain about it?
Just reset everything. So it's probably just me, but has it ever bothered anyone? So it's probably just me, but has it ever bothered one of you all that Sally is a chipmunk and not a squirrel? I know chipmunks like acorns too, hence her family's last name, but I feel like her being a squirrel would have worked so much better for her brand. I remember when I first started watching Sat AM after it was already off the air, and I would constantly, by accident, refer to her, to my friends, as Sally the Squirrel.
It was something that was discussed in the reboot on whether or not we would want to update her to be the same species as her father. And ultimately, we decided that would be too much of a change. Like, the fans were already going to be really shaken by the redesigns and the whole reboot anyway. Giving her a tail and making her full-on squirrel, that we thought it might be a bridge too far. The funny thing is, with Sat AM, she didn't have a species. I mean, it's pretty obvious chipmunk, but it was never actually defined in the series Bible, along with Antoine or even King Acorn. Like, King Acorn in Sat AM looks more like a fox than anything else. And the squirrel thing was, I think, more of a Archie. I think it might have been Patrick Spelziante who just kind of put that in there. Point is, there was no clear direction for any of them, and it's just kind of fallen into place over time. And, should they reappear down the line, there's a possibility that she does get changed into a squirrel. I don't know. That's going to be interesting to see what happens.
I guess if she gets a big fluffy tail, you have to have a tail fight with Tangle. It'd be weird. So when you write for Sonic, Ian, sometimes he sometimes has a tendency to give a speech to his enemies before he fights them. Examples being Eggman and Metal Virus and Surge and Imposter Syndrome. Some fans do not like that he does this. If I'm being honest, it's 50-50 with me. I absolutely loved his Mr. Tinker conversation with Eggman and Metal Virus, but I less enjoyed the speech he gave to Surge. My question is, do you take any of the fans' feedback into account, or do you say, I respect your guys' opinions, but darn it, I'm going to keep writing him like this? Which, as a writer, you have every right to do.
There's that, but there's also, understanding that you are catering to a larger audience, and there are licensors to please. So I don't get in my way all the time. I do have to take in other feedback sources. And I get it. I absolutely do. I feel like with the comics, because it is a static, silent medium, you can't just rely on a quip and a bit of action, because it's not going to flow the same way as it would in an animated cutscene. And to convey the information and the motivations that you want, there needs to be a little bit of expository dialogue.
Yeah.
Maybe a stub my toe and put a little too much in here or there. That's up for folks to debate. But in general, yeah, Sonic should not be soliloquizing, monologuing.
Good enough.
He is pretty straightforward and to the point. And so when he is going on, it's for an actual purpose. And whether or not that has been executed well, I leave that to the individual to assess for themselves.
All right. And we got one last question from Luke. As the Sonic brand has evolved over the years, do you all think there has been a misinterpretation/misunderstanding of what exactly it is? What I mean is, some people will say it's a franchise for kids because it's about cartoon animals. But to me, Mario's a franchise for kids, and you would never see a government agent, or anyone for that matter, gun down Bowser Jr. in Mario. I mean, maybe. That would be wild.
We live in an imperfect world, but anyway.
That would be wild. I feel like when people say they want a more mature Sonic, they are not talking about sex and drugs, though they probably do mean some cursing, like damn. They are just talking about it. They are just talking about taking it back to how it was from Adventure 1 to 06, or even the Japanese version of Sonic X.
Here's the thing. Sonic has been so many things.
Yep.
Over the past 30 years, it's very hard to definitively say it's this, because you can find numerous examples of it not being that for extended periods of time. So I wouldn't say it's been misinterpreted or misunderstood, because it's really experimental when you get down to it. There are preferences for the more lighthearted elements, for the more comedic elements, or for the more dramatically driven elements. But all of them are valid because all of them have found some degree of success within their respective titles or periods of the franchise. So I think it's ultimately there is no one singular right answer. I know I have my preference, but there are a lot of different ways to approach it, and it also has to be malleable because tastes in media change over time. We've talked about this repeatedly on the show. What passed for cool and irreverent in the 90s is cringe nowadays.
I mean, it was pretty cringy back then too, to be fair.
Yeah, but it was the 90s. Everyone was cringe.
That's what we'll be saying in 30 years about this generation right now. So, yeah.
I mean, arguably you can say it is right now. That's the thing. Sonic is supposed to be kind of cool counterculture, and as the culture develops, the counter has to change with it. So that means reinterpreting things as things go along. So
the counterculture has become the culture.
Yeah. So I think as long as the material is treated with thoughtfulness and respect, that will come through in the final product and will please the majority of the audience. And for something as varied and long-standing as Sonic, I think that's the best you can really do with it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe some swearing would be fun. Some light swearing, Let some of the characters say a swear. I think Surge needs to be able to say something.
Oh, sure.
Let Silver say crap. Wait.
Except crap isn't a swear word.
It's not.
I will die on that hill.
No, it is not. If your parents tell you it is, they're wrong. Yeah. No. Let Vector say bugger. Okay. That's funny. Yeah. Let's see. I don't know, man. Let them say swear. So silly.
Thanks to Luke R for sponsoring this episode. If you want a BumbleKast Mini of your own, head over to patreon.com/BumbleKast, Ko-fi.com/BumbleKast, or become a YouTube member.
See you next time.